Hi there, Miss Beth and Winston. Winston, are you going to say hi? Are you going to say hi? Come on up. Come on up. See, there's Winston. Say hi. Say hi. Look. Look. Well, Winston has been a little bit of a Dickens the last 24 hours. He did not let me get very much sleep last night, so hopefully he's tired too, and we'll go over and take a little nap. Okay, down while we're reading the story. Okay, we're back. We're getting close to the end. Back on the tale of Despereaux. We're on chapter 37, which begins on page 188. Let me see. This is a little glary. Let me see if I can fix that. How's that? That's a little better. Okay. So, chapter 37, a small taste. Now, if you're listening, remember, get cozy. Get thinking about the characters, what you know about them so far. Okay? All the characters, remember. And if you're listening, make that movie in your head. If you're reading along, make that movie in your head too. That's what helps you remember the story and remember what's happening. And to be able to talk about it later because you've made that movie in your head. Okay? All right. A small taste. She was asleep and dreaming of her mother, the queen, who was holding out a spoon to her and saying, "Taste this, my sweet pea. Taste this, my darling, and tell me what you think." The princess leaned forward and sipped some soup from the spoon that her mother held out for her. "Oh, Mama," she said, "it's wonderful. It's the best soup I've ever eaten." "Yes," said the queen. It is wonderful, isn't it? May I have some more?" said the pea. "I gave you a small taste so that you would not forget," said her mother. "I will give you a small taste so that you would remember." "I want more." But as soon as the princess said this, her mother was gone. She disappeared, and the bowl and the soup spoon disappeared along with her. "Lost things," said the pea. "More lost things." And then she heard her name. She turned, happy, thinking that her mother had come back, but the voice was not her mother's. The voice belonged to someone else, and it was coming from someplace far away, and it was telling her to wake up, wake up. The pea opened her eyes and saw Miggery Sow standing over her bed, a knife in one hand and a candle in the other. "Mig," she said. "Gore," Mig said softly. "Say it," commanded Rescuro. Mig closed her eyes and shouted her piece. "If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me." "Whatever for?" said the princess in an annoyed tone. As I have noted before, the princess was not a person that was used to being told what to do. "What are you talking about?" Meg opened her eyes and shouted, "You got to come with me. So after we take some lessons, you some long lessons and me some short ones, together way down in the deep downs, I can be you and you can be me." "No!" shouted Rescuro from Mig's pocket. "No, no, no, you are doing it wrong." "Who said that?" "Your Highness," said Rescuro, and he crawled out of Mig's pocket and made his way up to her shoulder and situated himself there, laying his tail across her neck to balance himself Your Highness, he said again, and he raised the spoon slowly off his head and smiled, displaying a mouthful of truly hideous teeth. I think it would be best if you do as Miggery Sow suggests. She is, as you can quite clearly see, in possession of a knife, a large knife, and she will, if pushed, use it. This is ridiculous, said the princess. You can't threaten me. I'm the princess. We, said Rescuro, are all too aware of the fact of what you are. A knife, however, no. A knife, however, cares nothing for the fact that you are royalty. And you will bleed, I assume, just like any other human. The pea looked at Meg. Meg smiled. Stop. Go lay down. The knife glinted in the light of the candle. Meg? Her voice shaking the tiniest bit. I really do not think, said Rescuro, that Meg would need much persuasion to use that knife, Princess. She is dangerous. She is a dangerous individual, easily led. But we are friends, said P. Aren't we, Meg? Eh? Said Meg. Trust me, said Rescuro. You are not friends. And I think it would be best if you address all your communications to me, Princess. I am the one in charge here. Look at me. The pea looked directly at the rat and at the spoon on his head, and her heart skipped one beat and then two. Do you know me, Princess? No, she said, lowering her head. I don't know you. But reader, she did know him. He was the rat who had fallen in her mother's soup. He was wearing her dead mother's spoon on her head. The princess kept her head down. She concentrated on containing the rage that was leaping up inside of her. Look again, Princess, or can you not bear to look? Does it pain your royal sensibilities to let your eyes rest on a rat? I don't know you, she said, and I am not afraid to look at you. And the pea raised her head slowly. Her eyes were defiant. She stared at the rat. Very well, said Rescuro. Have it your way. You do not know me. Nonetheless, you must do what I say, as my friend here has a knife. And so get out of bed, Princess. We are going on a little journey. I would like it if you were dressed in your loveliest gown, the one that you were wearing at the banquet not so long ago. And put on your crown, said Mig. Put that on your princess head. Yes, said Rescuro. Please, Princess, do not forget your crown. The pea, still staring at Rescuro, pushed the covers back and got out of bed. Move quickly, said Rescuro. We must take our little journey while it is still dark. No. And while the rest of the castle sleeps on. Ignorant, oh so ignorant, I am afraid, of your fate. The princess took a gown from her closet. Yes, said Rescuro to himself, that is the one, the very one. Do you want to crate up? Stop. The very one. Look at how it sparkles in the light. Lovely. I will need someone to do my buttons, said the princess as she stepped into the dress. Meg, you must help me. Little princess, said Rescuro, Do you think that you can outsmart a rat? Our dear Miggery Sow will not lay down her knife, not even for a moment. Will you, Miggery Sow? Because that might ruin your chances of becoming a princess, isn't that right? Gore, that's right, said Mig. And so while Mig held the knife pointed in the direction of the princess, the pea sat and let the rat stop. Let the rat crawl over her back, doing her buttons for her one by one. The princess held very still. The only movement she allowed herself was this. She licked her lips over and over again because she thought that she could taste the sweet saltiness of the soup that her mother had fed to her in the dream. I have not forgotten, Mama, she whispered. I have not forgotten you. I have not forgotten soup. Chapter 38, To the Dungeon. The strange threesome made their way down the golden stairs to the castle. The princess and Mig walked side by side, and Despereaux hid himself again in the pocket of Mig's apron. Mig pointed the sharp tip of the knife at the princess's back, and together they went down, down, down. The princess was led to her fate as around her everyone slept. The king slept in his giant bed with the crown on top of his head and his hands crossed on his chest, dreaming of his wife, the queen, that she was a bird with green and gold feathers who called his name, Philip, 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 without ceasing. Cook slept in a too small bed off the kitchen, dreaming of a recipe for soup that she could not find. Where did I put that? She mumbled in her sleep. Where did that recipe go? It was for the queen's favorite soup. I must find it. And not far from Cook, in the pantry, atop a bag of flour, slept the mouse Despereaux, dreaming, as you know, reader, of knights in shining armor, of darkness and of light. And in the whole of the darkened sleeping castle there was only the light of the candle in the hand of Miggery Sow. The candle shone on the princess's dress and made it sparkle. The princess walked tall in the light and tried not to be afraid. In this story, reader, we have talked about the heart of the mouse and the heart of the rat and the heart of the serving girl, Miggery Sow. But we have not talked about the heart of the princess. Like most hearts, it was complicated, shaded with dark and dappled with light. The dark things in the princess's heart were these: a very small, very hot, burning coal of a hatred for the rat who was responsible for her mother's death. And the other darkness was a tremendous sorrow, a deep sadness that her mother was dead, and the princess could now only talk to her mother in her dreams. And what of the light in the princess's heart? Reader, I am pleased to tell you that the pea was a kind person. And perhaps more important, she was empathetic. Do you know what it means to be empathetic? I will tell you. It means that when you are being forcibly taken to a dungeon, when you have a large knife pointed in your back, when you are trying to be brave, you are able still to think for a moment of the person who is holding the knife. You are able to think, oh, poor Meg. She wants to be a princess so badly, and she thinks that this is the way. Poor, poor Meg. What it must be like to want something that desperately. That, reader, is empathy. And now you have a small map of the princess's heart. Hatred, sorrow, kindness, and empathy. The heart that she carried inside of her as she went down the golden stairs and through the kitchen And finally, just as the sky outside the castle began to lighten, down into the dark of the dungeon with the rat and the serving girl. Chapter 39, Missing. The sun rose and shed light on what Despereaux and Maigre had done. And finally, Despereaux awoke. Come here. But alas, he awoke too late. I haven't seen her, Louise was shouting. And I tell you, I washed my hands of her. If she's missing, I say good riddance. I say good riddance to bad rubbish. Despereaux sat up and looked behind him. Oh, his tail gone, given over to the knife where the tail should be. Nothing but a bloody stub. And more foul play. Gregory is dead, shouted Cook. Poor old man, the rope of his, that rope of his, broken by who knows what, and him lost in the dark and frightened to death because of it. It's too much. Oh no, whispered Despereaux. Oh no, Gregory is dead. The mouse got to his feet and began the long climb down from the shelf. Once he was on the floor, he stuck his head around the door of the pantry and saw Cook standing in the center of the room, wringing her fat hands. Beside her stood a tall woman jangling a ring of keys. That's right, said Louise. All the king's men was down there searching for her in the dungeon. And when they came back, do you know who they had with them? They had the old man, dead. And you know, and now you tell me that Meg is missing? I say, who cares? Despereaux made a small noise of despair. He had slept too long. The rat had already acted. The princess was gone. What kind of world is it, Miss Louise, where princesses are taken right from under our noses and queens drop dead and we cannot even take a moment of comfort in soup? And with this, the cook began to cry. Shh, said Louise, I beg you, do not say that word. Soup, shouted Cook. I will say it. No one can stop me. Soup, soup, soup. And then she began to cry in earnest, wailing and sobbing. There. And she put her hand out to touch Cook, and Cook slapped it away. It will be all right, said Louise. Cook brought the hem of her apron up to wipe her tears. It won't, she said. It won't be all right ever again. They've taken our little darling away. There ain't nothing left to live for without the princess. Despereaux was amazed to have exactly what was in his heart spoken aloud by such a ferocious, mouse-hating woman as Cook. Louise again reached out to touch Cook. And this time Cook allowed her to put an arm around her shoulder. What will we do? What will we do? Wailed Cook. And Louise says, shh, there. Alas, there was no one to comfort Despereaux. Come here. And there was no time anyway for him to cry. He knew what he had to do. He had to find the king. For having heard Despereaux's plan, reader, Despereaux knew that the princess was hidden in the dungeon, and being somewhat smaller than Maigre, he sensed the terrible unspoken truth behind Despereaux's words. He knew that Meg would never be a princess, and he knew that the rat, once he captured the pea, would never let her go. And so the small mouse, who had been dipped in oil and covered in flour and relieved of his tail, slipped out of the pantry, past the weeping ladies, and he went to find the king. That's the end for today, folks. We will start on chapter 40, which is called Forgiveness, tomorrow. And I'm sorry that Winston was very impatient for this reading to be over so that he could go outside. Hopefully he'll be a little more cooperative tomorrow. So read those books. Maybe it's a fantasy book like The Tale of Despereaux, or maybe it's a mystery, or maybe it's a tall tale, or maybe it's a fairy tale. But find something good to read today. Have fun. Till tomorrow.